Let's go watch it in 2D. No, let's go watch it in 3D. But if we watch it in 3D, then is it worth the cost?
As the world fell, it was hard to know who was more crazy. Me or everyone else.
Here they come.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Mad Max Fury Road. Backed by popular demand, the ultimate action experience.
Hello. This is Adolf with Jake,
Howdy, folks.
Krista,
Hello.
and Kristen.
Hello, world.
The entire crew is here. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
So we're doing the 3D or 2D movie club, and the movie that you selected by voting is Mad Max Fury Road. And we will get into full spoilers. We do want to give people, just in case, maybe a 5-minute thoughts on the movie before we get into spoilers. Jake, what are your thoughts on the movie?
This is one of the best action movies ever made. This is easily the best Mad Max movie ever made.
Okay.
This is a great one.
All right, Krista.
It's a really intense movie. Like, normally I wouldn't like this kind of thing, but I actually do like this movie.
Kristen.
I was wondering if maybe Krista liked it because of the choreography. I think the choreograph of this movie really lends itself to non-fans of action-packed movies. It's interesting. I think this was the first big-budget Mad Max because I have watched the previous films numerous times, and I was going to say that the previous movies from the 70s and 80s were good movies, but they were, of course, lacking the big budget. But they did really well with what they had, and it was interesting to see what they could do with the universe, with the budget that they had.
Yeah, it's. I definitely appreciate this movie a lot from a filmmaker perspective. Just trying to understand all the things that went into it because it is such a complex movie that had so many moving parts.
Okay. So I did not watch the previous Mad Max movies before watching this movie, so I was only slightly lost.
Yeah, within the first 10 minutes, you don't really have the background for the character, but you very quickly understand what's going on.
I think the original films lend themselves to the backstory of Mad Max himself. You know, he's actually a police officer. And I think that that's something that really adds a lot of depth to his character that was not necessarily touched upon in the Road Fury production.
Yep. Yeah, they don't even call him Mad Max in Fury Road. In fact, you don't even get his last name, Rotowski. He's just Max.
And you almost think that's his last name.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and Tom Hardy is excellent in the part. I mean, considering how Mel Gibson, 90% of his fandom that's left is basically Mad Max fans.
Yeah.
It would have been nice if he could have done.
It's actually very interesting that because it's not even really about Max. It's about the characters in this town, and it's about Furiosa, and Max is just our window into seeing this town.
For the 3 lines he has, Max is fine. It's really great. He has basically 3 whole lines in this whole movie. So this movie is actually very basic. I feel like, Kristen, you said before, what was it? A Neanderthal could follow the movie plot?
Yeah, so the caveman could follow the plot. But that's probably why it's so popular. Is that you can go and you can escape. You don't have to be cerebral throughout the whole movie in order to enjoy it. You can just enjoy it for what it is. And I think in these crazy times now, and even back when it was released 5 years ago, that people were looking for an escape. People kind of get tired of having these heavy thought movies that they have to really concentrate on to get through.
So you could kind of put the whole story in a 1-sentence nutshell. People not happy where they are, They go somewhere else thinking over there will be good. But then they don't like it there, so they go back to where they started.
Yeah.
That's a gross oversimplification, and I understand that. But when you look at it as a whole, that's basically the entire plot.
The entire movie is one long car chase.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, this is basically Wages of Fear on steroids. For those not familiar with the movie, it's probably before this was probably the greatest suspenseful truck movie ever made. Check it out.
All right, so we'll go into spoilers now. Now on, we'll have full-on spoilers.
Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. Warning, this podcast contains spoilers.
But just so you know, I still really enjoyed this movie. Does this movie hold up? Yes or no? Yes for me. Krista?
Yeah.
Kristen?
Yes, when I was reviewing it for the past week, I was thinking about how still relevant and up to date it still felt even 5 years later. I mean, not that that's a long time to judge the sticking power of a movie, but I think that people will be watching this movie 20 years from now.
Jake?
Oh yeah, I was blown away how well this hood held up for me, and I just noticed a lot of other things going on. I mean, I've always liked George Miller as a filmmaker. I mean, who else can like direct a Mad Max movie and turn around and do Babe, Pig in the City?
And Happy Feet.
Yeah, Happy Feet, exactly.
Now, you did mention the director. The director, he actually directed all of the movies to an extent.
Nobody's touched his baby.
So this is the 4th Mad Max movie, am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a miracle this got made because the 3rd one was so horrible. I mean,
agree.
It killed Thunderdome. It just like killed the franchise.
Thunderdome was like trying to be something different, and I think that's where it failed. I went and saw that in the theater, and I was all hyped up, and I was like, "What is this?" I'm just like,
"Oh yeah!" I mean, it's all like Tina Turner, singing the theme song, and PG-13, and I was like, "What the hell?" It had nothing to do with what was going on. I told my friends to just let's go to my house. I have an Australian copy of the first Mad Max without the crappy dubbing and the trims to not get the X. So they watched that and they said, then they understood why I hated Thunderdome so much.
I think it's interesting that Mad Max has become an institution of Australia, almost in the same vein as Doctor Who has with England. It's almost a part of their national identity.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So this movie was in development hell for like decades, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it started production in the 90s, I think it was.
97, according to the notes.
Yeah, well, a lot of this production hell was Warner Brothers they felt so burnt by Thunderdome, and hey, Thunderdome is all on them how terrible it was. They're the ones who were pushing to make this a family-friendly franchise.
Now, that being said, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that this movie has almost accomplished that goal of being a family-friendly franchise.
It's not a hard R, it's a soft R. Krista, do you agree?
I mean, like, a pregnant woman does get run over by a car. So...
True.
Yeah.
But it's not gruesome. It's not, you don't see guts everywhere.
Our kids are desensitized from this kind of thing now, though. They may not have been back in the 80s.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the PG-13 cut that George Miller showed the suits and then told them, hey, but this is what I want to do, and then showed them, and then they signed off on the R1.
Thank goodness for that.
Yeah, or we would have had another Thunderdome. Of course, I really liked Tom Hardy in the part. I didn't think I would ever accept anybody but Mel Gibson in the part.
I really like Furiosa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is Furiosa's movie.
Yeah, she was so rugged, but still so beautiful in that movie. They really did a good job of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Charlie Theron really knocked it out of the park. And the effects in here, believe it or not, most of it was done practically.
I believe that. It looks amazing.
This part of the reason that this movie was a conversion and not originally filmed in 3D was just because of how difficult it was to film, because everything is practically everything is practical effects. So it's just like an entire like moving machine of like all these stunt actors they have and all these practical effects they have. It's really amazing.
And the 3D is, you could tell they were having trouble with the 3D because there are several scenes of what I call a cutout effect, but they were really smart with it. They kept things moving. It's almost like we got to rest here, so we're going to make this kind of flatter, but we're going to move so fast you're not going to notice it, because a lot of high-speed movies like this in conversions, they're blurry. This movie never gets blurred. The 3D is never blurry. And I had no problems. I didn't get a headache from this. This movie just, you don't get a chance to catch your breath. And the 3D didn't, because usually after 90 minutes you get tired. My eyes didn't get tired. I just thought they took advantage of what you can do with a conversion, and they used the limitations of that to their advantage.
Now, you watched it on 3D Blu-ray, right, Jake?
Yes. And I've saw it 3D in the theater.
I saw it 3D in the theater. Krista, did you watch it in 3D or no?
I watched it in 3D, yeah.
You lucky people. I was thinking of I think shots that I would have enjoyed seeing in 3D would have been like a lot of those wide open desert scenes just would have been so impressive in 3D.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and the cinematography in this was absolutely gorgeous. John Seal, he did an incredible job on this.
And that's part of the reason the 3D really works in many scenes, because those action, car scenes, you see the people coming from the background into the foreground, and you see, a couple of times you see Max as a hood ornament. He's popping out, and like the whole back of the car is back there, and then they're doing the action scene, and when they're on their like stilts and jumping down, that looks great in 3D. All that stuff is popping out. Stuff is like going depth wise, and there's a scene at the end where like a big crash where that is just incredible in 3D.
I feel like I missed part of the movie now.
Yeah, well, you kind of have. I couldn't imagine seeing this in 2D because I was so impressed with the 3D in this, especially for a conversion. This is like one of the first conversions I saw that really knocked my socks off. Oh, warning! There is a lot of flashing lights in Fury Road. So this is also another movie. If you have epilepsy, you might find out. So that's something. Because I remember my theater had warnings, but other places, because I actually saw Mad Max Fury Road like 3 or 4 times in theaters. I can't remember exactly how many times, because I remember one time it was I got really trashed.
So I watched this movie the second time for this purpose. I watched it in Chrome and the Chrome and Black version, which is a black and white version made specifically for Blu-ray. And I really enjoyed it that way. Now, it's interesting because there's one scene toward the second third of the movie where basically where they're at the green place, and the green place is actually really blue. And when you're seeing it in black and white, you can't really tell that much different from when it was, in the movie, the color version. In the color version, that blue is just really vibrant, and it's a totally different color palette as the rest of the movie, because the rest of the movie is very orangey brown.
The colors seem so vibrant in the movie. It seems interesting that he wanted to do a black and white version. I think that's really, really, really interesting.
So I liked it in black and white and the chrome and black whatever version, but I still I went back and saw some scenes in color and black and white. I was like, I could appreciate both, but I still like it in color.
I'm not sure the exact blue you're talking about, but one thing why parts of the movie look blue is because they're actually using day for night.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Because part of the time when they're in the desert, I always took it as it was night when they were.
Yeah, the green place where they get stuck in the mud. Is that what you're talking about?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And early on in the movie, they had some indoor scenes where it would go from, you would have orange and blue in the same scene.
Yeah. So all that's black and white, and it just kind of, those scenes don't feel as the same. But for the rest of the movie, it's fine. It did make the special effects seem to be really cool because it kind of just cleans it all up where you really can't tell. I mean, you can't tell the special effects anyway, but in the black and white version, it just looks totally perfect. Like, I don't know if they cleaned it up even more or what, but...
Yeah, and some of my old burner friends said Mad Max Fury Road has killed Burning Man.
So this movie made about $400 million, which is kind of low. Like, you would think this movie would make $1 billion.
We're going to be watching this movie for years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mel Gibson's going to become a trivia question. They're going to go, you'll never believe this, but Mel Gibson used to play Mad Max.
And he had an accent.
Yeah.
Now, let's get to the actual plot, which it's Mad Max starts the movie, and he's, like, talking, and he eats a lizard, and then he goes somewhere, and then he gets caught, and in this area... Furiosa is leaving with women, and Immortal Joe says, you guys gotta go east to the gas town, and they don't go that way. They go out to get free, because we learn that Furiosa is part of what they call quote-unquote breeders, and, you know, basically the women, and they're being freed by Furiosa. And eventually, Immortal Joe chases after Furiosa, and they're trying to go to the green place, which is where Furiosa was from. But the green place doesn't exist anymore, and then they go back to where they were, and that's basically the entire movie.
I'm hearing motorcycles in the background. Is it like Mad Max going on in somebody's neighborhood? Is it like Seattle?
I don't know. Now, this became a cult hit, and a lot of people really love it, but, you know, $400 million worldwide, it just seems so low for this movie. And it did become a meme with Immortal Joe saying, mediocre!
Also, I something I don't think you picked up on, the green place is actually the city that they originally started in was the green place. And they're leaving that city to try and find the green place, to try and find a place that is better than the city. But the reality is the city is their best option.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
because everything else is worse.
Yeah. Oh, there's all sorts of things going on in this movie. Like, in repeat viewings, one of the things I picked up on is when you work together, you get stuff done. When you sacrifice, things get done. And the people who work together and sacrifice win.
Now, do you guys think the movie's too long? Or is it just right?
It makes sense at that length, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. I left satisfied. I mean, I left wanting a little more and happy.
It was right at 2 hours, wasn't it? That's standard length.
Yeah.
I thought they went out of their way to cut it down to exactly that length.
Yeah, a lot of these blockbusters, they come in at 2.5 because it's almost like, oh, we have to give them a Bollywood length movie because we're hosing them so much at the box office for a ticket. So we got to, but 2 hours, I got my money's worth. Heck, I mean, I bought this on 3D Blu-ray.
Now, the reason I say it's too long is because the movie does have like a false ending with Furiosa actually arriving at the green place and basically saying, "Oh my God, what have we done?" And like it could have ended there, but then they go back to the other town, back to where they came from. So it kind of feels like that's like an encore. Like you're like, no, we're not happy with this ending. We could have, let's go back. And
that seemed like the third act twist. Like they get there and they find there's no place like home, and then it's like and then it was perfect because Immortal Joe sent out everybody watching the place other than the war pups, so it's ripe for the picking.
Now, is it just me, or does Immortal Joe look like Donald Trump, but like in 10 years?
Yeah. Oh, and if Morton Joe seems familiar, it's the same actor who played Toe Cutter earlier in the.
I thought of that. Yeah, he's older, but he definitely.
Yeah.
He still has that same hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Tom Hardy in his mask wearing. I mean, seems like almost every movie he's in, he wears a mask.
Yeah.
His face is covered.
For the first third of the movie, he has like basically 2 lines and that's it. And then he has the mask over him and he doesn't do that much. Now, we mentioned this before. A lot of people got mad at this movie. It was actually kind of controversial because people said that Furiosa outstaged Mad Max in his own movie, and that this got people all saying that the movie is sexist and against men and blah 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 blah. Is that a legitimate critique or not?
No.
I think the way they produced it and filmed it, I don't think so. I think they did a good job. If that was their intent, everyone else should take notes.
Yeah. This is this Captain Marvel should have taken notes from this movie. If you're going to make a movie about somebody and have them be the background character, this is how you do it.
What's the deal with the little kid? I don't know if it's a little boy or a little girl. We keep seeing flashbacks of Mad Max.
I think that's his daughter.
Yeah, that's his daughter. His wife and daughter were brutally murdered.
Okay.
That happens in Mad Max, the first one.
Because that wasn't clear at all for someone like me that had never seen any Mad Max movies.
Yeah, I had no idea. The only reason I knew that is because someone was like, "That's his daughter," and I was like,
"Okay." And the other woman in the flashbacks, that's his wife.
I think they had those flashbacks that may not mean a whole lot to new audiences, but I think they had a lot of homage scenes in that. Another scene that I immediately picked up on was the old woman with the shotgun scene, which wasn't really part of the new plot, but was definitely an homage to the granny with the shotgun in the previous films.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, his car.
Yes, his car, which they did a great job at
thinking
about.
Yeah, and one of the things I found very interesting was he pretty much functioned in the movie as he was a walking blood bag.
Yes.
Of course, at first it was not voluntary, but then at the end he saves Furiosa because he's a universal donor and he chooses to, and he saves her.
Now, that part I kind of questioned because they said, "Oh, she has a ruptured lung," and then let me give her a blood transfusion. It's like, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that would work.
Well, they don't know. They're just assuming. I mean, how much credence and how much would this woman actually know?
Okay.
I'm just saying, how much would she actually know? But also, it's a movie's got a movie, and you got to keep it moving. So, this is it's one of those things. If you can't let go of it, the movie's not going to work for you. But if you can let it go over you, you'll get more enjoyment out of the movie.
It's Mad Max. You're not supposed to overthink it.
Yeah, but hey, it's like one of those things. She wasn't exactly radiating that I have a medical degree.
Now, the movie itself is very fast paced. There's basically like no wait for the action. It just goes in like 5 minutes in, you already, have a scene that's action packed.
Yeah, it's like most action movies. I would say like a lot of action movies have a significant part of dialogue where you have like a bit of action, like you have a set piece, and then you have like a break where people talk and plot happens, and then like there's another set piece, and so it's like the action is broken up. This is just one long set piece. Like the dialogue is going on as the action is going on. There's like one time when the truck breaks down that they're like not moving, but even when they're not moving, they're like, those people are still coming after us. So it's like still action.
Yeah, and they're still kind of feeling each other out what they're going to do. Oh, I also think we should talk about a lot of careers. If they didn't start here, they went into overdrive being in this movie. I mean, Tom Hardy was already a big thing, and Charlie Theron, but Nicholas Hoult, this is what really put him on the map, is Nux. And Zoe Kravitz is one of the wives.
Yeah, it has a really good cast. Like I like everyone in general, but I kind of don't like Mad Max. He just kind of is an ass.
He's an ass in the other movies too.
Yeah. This one, he's more mad. He's more. You can see he's having troubles. I me's definitely lives up to the mad part of his name. He's not just a vicious killing machine. He actually has a personality, and you can actually understand his motivations. I just thought Tom Hardy really brought a lot to the table for the character.
They couldn't have got Mel Gibson to do it because he would have been too old for that kind of demand, I think.
Yeah, which is why I think he didn't do it. And also, I don't think Warner Brothers would have signed off on this kind of budget.
Well, he's also a toxic person, so they probably don't want him.
Yeah, exactly. That's why most of his fan base are old Mad Max fanatics.
If I've got an assignment for you, you've got to go watch the other two films, or at least watch the highlight.
I did watch a YouTube video that gave me the highlights. It was like Mad Max, the trilogy in 5 minutes. And that's like, okay, that gave me some information.
Okay.
Movies too, like World Gone Mad, that sort of came from that same universe.
Yeah. You definitely watch The Road Warrior, because I have a lot of friends. I like The Road Warrior a lot. I personally think Fury Road is better, but I know a lot of people who still think The Road Warrior is the best action movie ever made and the best Mad Max movie, and of course they think Fury Road is the second best. And they roll their eyes at all the crap the incel Mad Max fans screaming about, if it's not Gibson, I don't care, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, whatever. Oh, and I was going to also add, and if you get a chance, it's available on DVD and Blu-ray in Australia. See the original Australian cut of Mad Max.
Now, I kind of feel like this is a really great summer movie because, like, it feels hot. Like, just being in the desert the whole time and everything, it just goes well with the summer for me. I don't know if that made sense to y'all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would have been weird releasing this in any other season.
Like, I just imagine that going to the theater and, being 110 degrees Fahrenheit outside, or 40 Celsius for, that's how you want to see this movie. Like, oh my God, it's so hot outside, So there is a prequel being made. And it was supposed to start production next year.
Who knows when anything is being produced?
And if this is Mad Max, it took them almost 20 years to crank that film out. We might be We might be on Mars by the time they finally release that movie.
Yeah. Or it may not happen. I
May
mean,
not
George
happen.
Miller's he's getting up there in years. And I can't imagine anybody else writing and directing a Mad Max movie. Because, I mean, heck, I think he even had his hand in on the video game.
It'd be sort of like making Star Wars without George Lucas.
I mean,
Yeah. But, hey, Rogue One was good.
Yep. I don't know why
So,
I don't know why they couldn't have followed that model through the other movies.
yeah, no kidding.
All right.
I keep telling
another reason.
Go ahead, Krista.
I watched that with my stepdad.
Another reason this movie looks really good is actually this movie was heavily storyboarded. Like, it didn't even have a script when it was starting out. They just drew out the entire story.
Smart.
It's Mad Max. What could go wrong?
So the sequel is titled, the working title, Mad Max Wasteland, and it's supposed to start filming next year, 2021. And they did say that they had lots of ideas for putting more Furiosa in there, and they have thought about, is this a prequel, is this a sequel? They're not really sharing, but it's gonna start production apparently next year. But like you guys said, who knows when they'll actually release it. So
it's somewhat ironic that we can't make the Apocalypse movie due to the current apocalypse going on.
Yeah, and you gotta also remember, before the apocalypse hit, Australia was burning to the ground, literally.
Yeah, it's been a rough year for everyone around the world.
They will bring Tom Hardy back because I think it'll be hard for fans to accept a third Max character.
And I also don't think you're going to get anybody better at this point.
I think audiences won't accept it.
Yeah, like I said, there's some Mad Max fans who didn't accept the change, and others just told him to get over it. Because like I said, I thought Hardy was very good in the part.
God, that was 40 years ago. You can't. There's no way Mel would have done that, even if you weren't toxic. It just wouldn't have worked.
I know, but I wish somebody would tell Harrison Ford about it.
Yes.
Of course, no, don't cast Tom Hardy as Indiana Jones. God, please, don't.
Yeah, that would be a stretch.
That would be hilariously bad.
Some cool things about this movie, how they actually had music while they were actually battling, and had those guys with the guitars and the drums out there with the flame guitars. It's like, come on, that's just awesome.
Oh, the music in this was incredible. It was just like, this is like one of those awesome playlist kind of things, because you had everything from violins to hard metal. I mean,
it was like WrestleMania.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it's changed to Burning Man. In fact, they've got other festivals. I mean, this is probably done for summer events, what Monty Python and the Holy Grail did for Ren Fairs.
And this movie actually won several awards, including Academy Award for Best Film Editing, Production Design, Costume Design, Makeup, Sound Mixing, and Sound Editing.
Got nominated for Best Picture.
All of those seem to be reasonable awards, especially film editing.
Yeah.
Because imagine just the absolute hot mess of footage you have when you're doing all your stunts live. And if you mess up once, you've destroyed the entire tape.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, this is the best truck-themed movie I've seen since Wages of Fear, or its remake by freaking Sorcerer.
Now, Krista, do you have some stories from your film class about this movie, or no?
Well, I mean, I already told a couple things. I know that it was entirely storyboarded without a script, and that it was shot day for night. it was converted because of the fact that like you like everything was so fast paced. Like there was no way you were going to get like be able to do native 3D when you're doing all this other crap going on. But it was filmed with 3D in mind from the beginning, and it shows. And it's like one of the only conversions that I know of that like that and maybe Gravity that like actually has a good conversion. Usually I don't like conversions as a general rule, but this actually kind of works.
So, in my original review, I gave it a 7 out of 10 and great 3D. Was I too low?
I think so.
All right, Jake, what would you give it?
I'd give it a 10 out of 10.
Kristen, what do you give it?
I think I'm going to agree with you. I think I'd give it a 7 or an 8 if I were re-reviewing it, just because it was missing some of the elements that I would have hoped would have been in a Mad Max movie. It seemed a little diluted.
Krista?
I feel like I'm gonna split the difference and say like an 8 or a 9.
So the reason I didn't give it higher is because the story is just like one sentence long. The action is amazing. I can't, you'd be crazy to say it's not amazing what they did here. It's fantastic, but the story is basic.
I mean, the plot is basic. The characters are not basic. There's a lot of character interaction going on that you don't get when you say, "Oh, it's basically just a chase scene." Like you have like a very interesting dynamic going on between Max and Furiosa. You have this whatever the dude and the what's his name? The one dude, like the white painted dude that originally joins the team and then like sacrifices himself.
Nux.
I can never remember his name. And like so like you have like a lot of interesting things going on in terms of character dynamics, and so I think that saves the story a little bit.
I basically agree with you. I just I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and trying to get that conversation going. Krista, do you gotta go?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Bye, Krista.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, one thing I really mentioned in this movie, they seem to use a lot of drugs called chrome, and it gives them like superpowers. I don't understand any of that. Is that like a thing in Mad Max movies or what?
No. I thought they were. It looks like they're huffing paint.
Yeah, I think that's what they were doing too. It was just giving them the aerosol high, and along with their belief system that they had some sort of adrenaline rush.
Now, the belief system is the next thing I want to mention because they're like Vikings or something. Valhalla was mentioned like multiple times.
Yeah, it's whatever pieces of the old world they come across, they kind of incorporate it. In fact, they even briefly mention it because they talk about when they're looking at the stars, when they were at the green place, they talk about there used to be shows.
Yeah, used to be shows like us. And, they're talking about seeding things, and like back in the day, people had so much food, and, they mentioned those things. But yeah, it's one of those things now.
I thought it was interesting the way that the V8 engine became a part of their religion as well. In fact, their chant kind of reminded me of something I would say when I go to the dealership to buy a new car.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, if you're going to be a car crazy person, how do they have tires that are so amazing? And how do the engines work with so much dust and everywhere? But whatever, you just got to let that go.
Sometimes they didn't work because they got clogged up a few times.
Yeah.
And I was going to say the tires were kind of rough that they were using. They would look like they were used, retreaded.
Yeah, recapped, retreads, real safe.
On the hot road.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else you want to mention, Kristen?
No, I enjoyed the film and I enjoyed reviewing it again. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a great choice by the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, you have anything else to throw out there?
No, I think I fanboyed enough on Fury Road.
So, that's Movie Club. I think we could try to aim to make this a seasonal thing. Obviously, the fall usually is a busy time where we have lots of things going on, because December seems like they usually have like 6 movies in a row or something. But we'll try to do this every few months. And again, we'll let everyone vote and decide the next movie. I guess that's going to be it for us. Before this podcast wraps up, I want to thank my patrons. Thank you, Kano3D and Mr. Bengal 5 for your financial support on patreon.com. So that's going to be it for this podcast. Thanks for listening. You can find 3D or 2D on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, Instagram, and more. Just look for 3D or 2D. Links are in the info box. If you want to send us listener mail, our email address is email3dor2d@gmail.com. Thank you for either listening or watching this podcast. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.